Hello and welcome everyone to our 10th episode of our Partnership Ecosystems Improvement Series. Today we will dive into partner onboarding. This is a critical step in building your partner ecosystem. So you've identified and signed up the perfect partner for you, but now what? How do you get them onboarded and excited to be working with you? I hope this discussion will provide you with the insights you need to start building that relationship. Today we have Gilles Esposito with us, and we know Gilles has worked in channel partnerships and alliances for nearly 25 years, worked with distributors, vendors, and partners, brings a holistic view to the conversation. And Carlo Breda. Carlo has spent nearly 3 decades in the channel, passionate about partnerships and how companies can optimize the power of their partner ecosystems. And I am Aaron Solomon, Director of Operations here at Gorilla. I worked with and managed channel sales and marketing programs for a variety of vendors and helped several build their channels from the ground up. So let's dive in. So partner onboarding. Gilles, I know, there's, everybody has their own little checklist of partner onboardings, but I know you are well-versed in the best practices of partner onboarding. So let's start there. Like we said in the intro, you have all of these partners, they're ready to go and start selling for you, but what is that first step? How do you welcome them to your partner program and begin that onboarding process?
Well, so thank you, Aaron, and hi, Carlo, and thank you, everybody, for joining today. So I'm going to start by disagreeing with you, Aaron. So first, sorry,
love it.
We're gonna make this fun and live a little bit. First of all, I don't think that everybody, being the vendors, have a checklist ready, and that's one of the biggest problem in channel ecosystem management. People usually tend to take onboarding as an afterthought. At least a lot of vendors that I know, and the one that do, usually they're missing a lot of things out of what I consider being the baseline of what channel onboarding should look like. That's number one thing I disagree with you. Number two thing, definitely, though, this one definitely at this point, the partners you recruited, they're definitely not ready to sell for you. They're absolutely not in a state of readiness that would enable them to do anything, unless they've been reselling your competition for the longest time, and your solution differentiates slightly from the competition, but not that much, right? So that would be the two things. And I see Carlo is itching to say something, so I'm gonna jump in.
I just want to disagree with you, Gilles.
Okay.
No, just joking. The thing is that just off the bat, what I've seen is a lot of confusion as to, regardless of the checklist, is around the fact that is the partner really recruited or not? Because that tends to be a bit of a fuzzy line, right? And so often onboarding can start with a partner that's not fully recruited. In other words, there may be an agreement to proceed, but the paperwork isn't done. When the paperwork isn't done, the stakeholders aren't really necessarily defined in terms of roles, responsibilities, et cetera, let alone the red tape around some of the recruitment agreements that I've seen, reseller agreements that I've seen, are just so horrific that they tend to drag along. And so you have this wave of admin that kind of overshadows the actual point of being able to say, yep, check, the partner is recruited, check, now we're ready for alignment and onboarding.
All right. So let's assume for a second that this portion is done properly, right? So you've been through the contracts, the NDA, the contracts, all that kind of stuff. Everybody's on board, wants to do it, and all that. What is partner onboarding, right? To start with, well, partner onboarding is how you're going to start making your partner ready to, do their part of the partnership with you. And if we're going to leave this today in a context that is purely traditional channel transactional partners, right? The one that are going to take your solutions and try to sell it into their customers and their prospects, right? So what you want to do is minimize. You want to do two things. The first one is minimize your the time to being operational for your partners, right? And if some of you, we're celebrating our 10th webinar today. Hey, that's a milestone for us. So number 10. So what we've covered in the previous one of the things you guys probably heard us say a million times is, salespeople at a partner or anywhere for that matter, if they're not, at least the good ones, if they're not perfectly comfortable with pitching your solution, and if they have option to pitch anything else, not necessarily competitor, other things, right? When they're in front of their prospects or in front of their customers, if they're not ready to pitch it, and they're not going to take the chance to look stupid or to look completely uneducated and that kind of stuff, right? So hint as to what's going to come in the partner onboarding here. But that doesn't only apply to the salespeople, right? There are pre-sales engineers, there's other people that may partake into the sales cycle at the partner level. If they don't feel confident with your solution and confident with themselves talking about your solution eloquently, they're just not going to do it. As simple as that. So you're wasting vast amount of resources and vast amount of time hoping that these people are going to do something if you don't do a proper onboarding. So to dive into it, right? There's pretty much 4 steps into onboarding. The first one is you're going to define for yourself a list of things that needs to be done, and that's a checklist. And you're also going to define a checklist for what you believe your partners need to do. So you're going to have to do these 2 checklists. That's step number, I would say, 0, right? Define those 2 things. What is my plan into onboarding a new partner? And your internal checklist and the external checklist, the one for your partners. Once you have this done, and we can dive into this further, and we will have a nifty little asset that we'll put on Gorilla website for you to access if you want to. That will show you everything we're going to be discussing today. Once you have these 2 things done, the next 2 steps that I see are welcoming your partners, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then an onboarding kit or a welcome kit or a package or whatever. Usually it's defined as an onboarding package for your new partners, right? So let's talk about anything else to add, Carlo, to those 3 steps. And the step number 4, I'm going to list everything, is going to be the kickoff call that you're going to have, or the series of kickoff calls, because you may need to have multiple ones depending on the availability of the people you want to touch at your partner, or the nature of the message you want to deliver during the kickoff call, right? So that would be the 4 steps: checklists, welcoming email or welcoming message, welcoming kit, and the kickoff call. Anything else, Aaron, Carlo? No, we're good.
We're good. I think I would add, at least from the vendor's perspective, having the team defined. In other words, the duties and responsibilities of the partner account manager, as opposed to the other people in the vendor side of the team, and also defining ahead and being prepared to tell the partner who in their company is going to be responsible for what in the whole relationship, right? But I'm sure you're going to be coming to that. So
that's a critical part of the onboarding kit, right? And I'll jump in this in a second, but let me start by no need to define what should be on the checklist. That's up to everybody, and I'm sure they differ from one vendor to another, but it's your responsibility as a vendor, and probably as a member of the channel team or the partnership team at the vendor, to define those lists, right? And you'll see we've repeated many a time that there's a lot of assets that are going to be put in place, available to your partner for them to be operational as quickly and efficiently as possible. And those assets are probably going to require a lot of resources at the beginning. Once it's done, it's ultimately scalable, so it's not a problem. But at the beginning, so especially for startups and scale-ups that are entering the realm of partnerships, it's something that it's going to become really, really important for you. So let's start by the welcome message, which can be anything, an email, a letter, or whatever you want. But it's usually it's in the form of an email, and usually the way I like to do it is to show partners that there's an involvement in my company, me as a vendor, that there's involvement from the higher level of the company. So I like the welcome to the family message to start by a message from the CEO, usually, if at all possible, and it's always nice to receive that kind of thing. And then through this, you're going to summarize the condition of these partnerships, right? And you want to personalize this as much as possible. You don't want to have a cookie cutter message for everybody. But once you've done these two things, right, the feel good stuff, you're going to probably talk about three things. One of them is you're going to add that checklist that you created for the partner and say, these are all the steps and all the thing. And you're going to combine this into a form of a timeline thing and say, by week number 1, we should have completed this. By week number 2, this, those type of thing and all that, right? And this is where you're going to define. So you're going to provide them with their checklist, with a timeline associated to that checklist. And you're going to start talking about cadence goals or a cadence goal, especially at the beginning, where there's going to be a need to meet at least on a weekly basis to make sure that there are questions that may arise, there's new things that may come up, and so on and so forth, that you address this as quickly as possible, and see if everybody is going through the motion or what. And then there's another thing that very few people do, and it's to add what we call an intake form for the partner, right? So an intake form is just a form that they're going to fill, or your champion at the partner, the person that is supposed to manage so it might be the vendor manager, it might be a salesperson, it might be the CEO if it's a small company, it might be anybody. But an intake form where you're going to try to capture a lot of information about how this partnership is going to continue to thrive and evolve and that kind of stuff, right? It might be things that are very technical, it might be things that are very operational, it might be things that are a little bit more on the spiritual, philosophical side, but you want to make sure you have an intake form where people can express a bunch of things, a bunch of questions they have, information about their company that you may not have captured in the previous engagements you had with them before they became a partner, and so on and so forth, right? And during that email, or within this email, what I would personally recommend is that you schedule the kickoff call at that point, right? So that's pretty much it. Anything to add to that introduction thing, or questions, Aaron or Carlo?
No, I'm glad you hit on the intake form and kind of that needs assessment, which can be done, even during the recruiting process, but in definitely incorporating that as you welcome the partner and really defining success with the partner and what that relationship is going to look like. Because I know we're really focusing on kind of VARs right now and the traditional resellers, but there's so many different types of partnerships out there that it's very important to, not, like you said, kind of put everybody in one box.
And you made a very interesting point here, right? You mentioned something along the lines of probably the information you're going to be requesting on that intake form is something you at least should have captured before, during the recruitment sessions and all the previous engagements you had with the partner. And I completely agree with you on this. This is why, if you've done a good job of being very empathetic with your partners and understanding what they're looking for, right? What best practices they've encountered from other vendors, for example, that you may want to replicate for them because they're used to it, they like it, all that kind of stuff. All this is good, right? But you may not have done that for whatever reason, right? and so at this point, you may want to incorporate this into the intake form and make sure you get all the feedback and all that. And by the way, the intake form is also to prepare the agenda for the kickoff call, right? From some of the stuff you're going to get in there, there are going to be stickies that you absolutely want to talk about during the kickoff call, right? And that's important. So awesome point. But yeah, if you did the job correctly, or if you had the time to do the job, sometimes you're going to have a partner that want to sign up with you out of the blue, without any recruitment session. They say, we're really interested in your product. We went on your website, we studied, we talked to customers that already use it, that kind of stuff. We want to sell your stuff. Okay, fine. Yeah. So you didn't have any time to do all that digging, all that fact finding about your partner. Now's a good time to do it through the intake form, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, so parallel to the welcoming email where you're going to do all those things, right? You're going to prepare your welcome kit. So, the welcome kit it's fundamentally critical to what's going to happen and how fast your partner are going to be able to get where they need to get to be able to confidently and efficiently pitch your solutions and sell them, right? and what I suggest with a welcome kit is usually to have like either a Google Drive or something like this, where you have that all those assets, all those things you're going to put in there at the ready for the partner, right? And your welcome kit might just be in the welcome email. It's going to be a URL where you have granted them authorization to go onto that drive, and then they have access to that, because you can put a lot of things in there. And I can start listing a million things that I consider are really important to put in your welcome kit. But to start with, the basics, maybe some of the element that you use during the recruitment you want to have there. So the sales deck or the pitch deck that you had for recruiting that partner, you may want to put it in there, right? Because they may want to go back to it and catch things, or they may want to explain to new employees in the company, how you became partner of that type of stuff. So you may want to do that, right? And your partner program, for example, if you have a scripted partner program, either in the form of a PDF or whatnot, even if it's a couple of sheets or if it's 20 pages, doesn't matter. You may want to put this partner program available to your new partner in that package, right? But then there's the things that are really important to bring your partner up to speed, right? So I'm going to start with things that seem obvious, but few people do. Product demo videos. That for me would be the absolute number one thing, because you're going to realize, and we'll talk about trainings, right? But you're going to realize very quickly that trying to put all the cats in the same room at the same time is going to be difficult, especially if it's a partner there's multiple salespeople, multiple pre-sales people, is regionalized and that kind of stuff. You want to scale as much as possible, but you don't want to miss anybody, because at this point you don't know which one of those people is going to be the perfect salesperson or pre-salesperson, or the one that are really going to be the standard bearer for your solutions, right? So you want to touch everybody at the beginning, and over time you'll find out what it is. Well, giving those people the ability to self-educate themselves through product demo videos and that kind of stuff is ideal, or product training videos, right, for that matter. But try to think about this, because that's over time where you're going to have a large ecosystem of partners. And again, they're going to hire new tech people, new salespeople, all that kind of stuff. It's going to save you a lot of time. And even if you still deliver trainings, formal trainings to these people, either through Zoom or in-person training, or instructor-led, whatever methodology you're using to do that, it's when they've watched a product training or product demo, and then they come to a training with this knowledge that they've acquired from that, your training is going to be so much more efficient, because people have already been exposed to what it is that you're doing, how you're doing it, and so on and so forth, right? So that would be for me the number one. But then there's all the stuff that your salespeople are going to need but not necessarily ask, because they have options to sell different things, right? And again, you may it's a little better to have things available that they're not going to use, rather than thing that they would probably use but it's not available, especially if they don't ask for them, right? So that's going to be your traditional, your battle cards. That's important. And if you're in a position where you have the ability to gather good competitive intelligence, you also want a competitive battle cards, because they'll be exposed to prospects and customers of theirs that are going to ask them, why is the solution you're pitching to me better than this other solution, right? That I was thinking of buying, or something like that, right? You may want to help them with a partner presentation. By partner presentation, what I mean is a presentation made for the partners to pitch in front of their prospects, right? Rather than letting them define it and all that. So give them something vanilla that they can customize, they can import into their own templates, that kind of stuff and all that. They will definitely appreciate that kind of thing, right? Value proposition. It's needless to say, it's everybody thinks it's obvious, but the number of time I've been in company where there were no value proposition designed for the partner, right? So you may want to have that. Similar to value proposition, elevator pitches, right? Short ones, long ones. So when they have 30 seconds to meet with somebody in a trade show or something like this, they're capable of pitching what it is that you're using effectively with a minimum amount of words, right? Those type of thing. What are your unique selling points or your unique selling proposition? It's all those kind of elements, you want to think of them ahead of time, so they're part of that welcoming kit or welcoming package, right? And there's more. Solution briefs, right? People are going to want to read like a data sheet. People are going to want to see this, right? A list of referenceable customers by industry, if you can, if you can have referenceable customers. So I know in cybersecurity, it's a little delicate to ask a customer if they're willing to put their name in front for you, but some do. And when you have referenceable customer, it's always a good thing. Case studies. So case studies, any day that you can have a case study, and a case study, again, as opposed to a use case. So for those of you that find this a little fuzzy to delineate, a case study is something that you have done. A use case is something that you can do. So it's completely different. A case study has happened. A use case is a projection of what you could do for a customer in a specific industry or a specific type of customers and all that. So nobody believes in use case as much as they believe in case studies, because that's tangible. There's been something done. It's been consumed. It's usually associated with the name of the person at the named company that you've been doing things. This is really impactful. But if you can get case studies, because again, you need to have a referenceable customer to do a case study, then use case is the next best thing, I would say, because it helps frame what your capabilities are in a specific vertical or that kind of stuff and all that. This is important. For the technical people, you're going to want to have white papers, right? That's important to them, because especially the technical one with diagrams, and if your solution calls for that kind of thing, of course, right? One thing people don't do enough is to put analyst papers in the welcome kit. That's important. That's validation of who you are as a vendor and how solid unless the analyst paper is really not good. But if it's from Gartner, IDC, Forrester, any of these guys, right? It's usually a good thing that you're mentioned by name into a quadrant, something like this, and to make this available to your partners is something usually that is very good. Then let's move on to other things that are important. The pricing structure, right? And your recommended street price, your something that partners can ballpark very quickly in front of a prospect that is interested, to make sure they either eliminate that prospect if the budget is completely out of whack for what they have, or make sure you fit within the project that they may have, right? Salespeople love this, to have the ability to immediately be able to provide at least a ballpark, bucket, that would be what you would need to gather to be able to acquire your solution, right? It's important. What else? Other things such as, press releases, articles, infographics, all that kind of stuff that can help with that.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about was your partner, like how to contact your partner success team, and maybe a little bit of how to navigate the vendor's organization, right? Yeah,
I am absolutely going there. So that's all the
okay,
stuff that is dedicated to your salespeople and your pre-sales teams and your
right,
marketing
okay,
team at the vendor, right? Then there's for them to do their job outside with prospects and customer. Now there's everything that is going to tie you and the customer from a process and a rules of engagement perspective. So and more important, so the rules of engagement, all that should be in your partner program, that should be in your contract, what to do, what to not do, all that kind of stuff and all that, but it's important to have it. Then comes your processes, right? So your processes, everything that is from quote to cash should be documented. Some companies have configuration tools that can put out a quote for their partners. Wonderful. That's probably not going to be for your startup and your scale-up company, but some companies have this. This is great. Some don't. So how do I get a quote? Who do I reach out to? What's the email I need to call a quote for? Do I go to my channel manager, or is there like a sales at blah blah blah.com or quote at blah blah blah.com or stuff like this? And from quote to cash, so everything that is between quote to PO, including these two, you won't have processes for that. For example, something extremely important for partners, which is special pricing request, right? So I know what my discount is, but if you want to get this customer, we need to dive an extra 5%, for example. What's the process for that? How do you get approval for that? So document all that kind of stuff. And associated with all those process, actually, ideally, these contact information are within the process map you're going to deliver to those people. Who to call when you have a technical issue, who to call when you have a sales issue. Who's the list of all the reps that we have from you, the vendor, available in the US, for example, because you're regionalized, you have 5 reps covering 5 regions. What are those 5 regions? So that when me as a partner, I'm going to sell something into, I'm in Florida, but I'm going to sell something in Illinois. Who's the rep that cover the region that includes Illinois, right? And his email and his phone number. And can I reach out to this person directly, or are there a different process for doing differently? All that information is critical to the partner. And on top of being critical to the partner, it is also going to show the partner that you are at a level of readiness or channel readiness that is fairly high. So it's important to have all of this in your onboarding kit or onboarding package, again, whatever name you want to give it, right? I'll pause here for a minute.
Just jumping in there, and I know you'll I'm sure that you will be talking about the importance of PRM, but what I wanted to say is that I think what you said is really good. You provide a lot of really good, rich material there that I think is perfect, really. With the exception, actually, of self-paced demos, I think that's a great tool to add to the overall kit. But so overall, there will be a bank of, for example, from my perspective, I look at the marketing side a little bit more because that's my background, of 2 partner marketing material and a whole set of through partner marketing material, including all of the other assets that are related to that, like the testimonials, et cetera, the case studies. The important thing is not only to make them easily accessible, easily served through a portal in a very easy to use and proactive manner. But the other thing that I would really recommend very heartily is to develop a playbook that tells the partner account manager and everybody else that has a role what their role is and when. Because there's a whole set of things that you've just pointed to. And unless there's a playbook that actually forces that workflow with sub checklists for every component of the delivery mechanism of that workflow, chances are that the onboarding could actually go wrong. I've seen best practice is developing a playbook and encoding it into your PRM or portal. I just wanted to comment on that.
No, that's and very valid, Carlo. I'm I'm assuming that a lot of people that attend our session are going to be from smaller companies traditionally. So it's not to excuse the fact that I didn't talk about what you touched based on. I mean, absolutely do what Carlo just said, right? Explain roles, responsibilities for everybody and all that. The reality is, very often people will default to a single point of contact, your channel manager, your sales rep, that kind of stuff, right? That they work with regularly. And they will bombard this person with every other question they may have, right? And then very good if that person says, listen, let me resend this to you again, right? Or you have all the contacts and these people are at the ready for you to answer these type of question, this type of question, this type of question. But you will have the people will very, very quickly default to one person they reach out to traditionally, because they have affinity and they developed a relationship with that person, right? And but I would definitely do what you said nonetheless, right? Because sometimes you're going to be in very large organization, partner organization, that are going to enforce the use of that thing because they're conscious of the time waste of that can occur if you don't do that, either internally for them or for their vendors as well, right? So it's a very good point. And you were mentioning PRM, so I was leaving this for last, right? Not every vendor. So first of all, not every vendor has a PRM solution. And if you don't, please reach out to Gorilla, because we have one that is made for, smaller companies, very low, very efficient, and very affordable. So that's it. I've done my little pitch here. But when you have a PRM, usually you're going to have some semblance or some very well done, some very basic, but covering all the needs of a relationship, usually between a vendor and a partner, where you're going to have a document repository or document management system included within the PRM. So when people are going to sign up on your PRM and so on and so forth, they're going to have access to all the things that I just mentioned. Still, despite all this, I would still deliver the playbook and all the other thing I've said into either an email or a folder on a virtual drive somewhere and all that, because you'll find out that not everybody's going to use your PRM, and some people like to have their files on their desktop on a folder, categorized by each vendor that they represent, blah, blah, blah. And then they can open, and they've organized this differently, that it's organized in your PRM, and they can consult it on any time, or their tablets or whatever, right? I know for a fact this is the reality, because this is what I do all the time. And every time I download the stuff on my, not a virtual machine, but my local machine, and I have everything available. So if I'm not connected and I don't have Wi-Fi or this and that, I still can prepare before my call with this prospect, because I know exactly where the battle card is located, or where the case study is located, or where the, whatever it is that I know I'm going to talk to or show to my contact. So still do it. But the PRM is extremely important. It's a key aspect of every scalable partner organization, and you absolutely want to have all those documents into a PRM as well, so people can access it when they use the PRM, right? So that's pretty much it.
Yep. Michael, does that I think that answers Michael's question, or is an onboarding kit recommended through the drive as opposed to a PRM or a portal that would be better? So
yeah. And we just had a gentleman that just said, he estimates that his ecosystem is using 50%. 50% of them are using the PRM.
That's not bad.
Surprised.
That's not bad. That's not a bad result.
Actually, in some cases, it's not bad, right? And not all PRMs are equal. Some of them, requires like 3 PhDs to use, and it's I understand the frustration of salespeople. And then
I think we talk with
Aaron all the time. And before I forget, Carlo, sorry, I want to mention that. When vendors, and it's always the case, when vendors go talk to a partner, they have this tunnel vision, right? All the time, that there's only the partner and there's only me, the vendor, right here.
Yeah.
They don't see the 250 other names on the line card, right? And then you multiply this, and you have a sales rep. So not all reps are going to carry a bag for a 250 thing. They're going to be segmented and all that. But even if it's 10 other vendors, right? You have 10 vendors now or 11 vendors now that have 11 different PRM systems, 11 different way to do things and all that kind of stuff and all that, right? I'll let you imagine the rest. Have some empathy when you talk to your partners and understand that they're going to have to deal with you now in addition to all the other ones they're already dealing with. So make your life easier and make their life easier, because if you do that, then they will use your stuff. If you don't, they will do what they traditionally do, which is, they're still in their position at this company for a reason. That makes their numbers, they make their sales, and they've done this for the past X years without your solution. Guess what? They can continue doing this without your solution. If your stuff is complicated, not easy to access, whatever the case might be, they're going to keep doing what they're good at doing and makes them money and retains them in the company. So, and we'll give you guys through other webinars that we have in the series and all that, ways to increase this one currency you have and only one currency you have, which is called mindshare, and how you do that. Yeah, I agree, Tyler. I completely agree with you. Unfortunately, not ours though, but it's I have to say that.
No, so you completely said what I was going to say, Gilles, and I violently agree with that, with your last few statements. There is a fair level of tunnel vision, in some cases real hubris, from the part of the vendor in terms of really feeling that their portal is beautiful and it's really nicely designed, and it's designed to be helpful for the partners, and so the partners should use it. But the reality is that on the other side of the trench, there's a different kind of warfare going on, and people don't have time to go into your portal and appreciate its beauty or anything like that, right? So therefore, you gotta use like your guerrilla tactics, really, in terms of, which is what Gilles was saying. Have it available on the Google Drive. I think you're right. I wouldn't have led with that, but it's a fair point. You've got to be ready to accept that your partners will not be avid users of your portal. Now, there are things that you can do tied to incentives that can make that portal become more active and actually deliver what it's meant to deliver. But apart from that, the only other thing that saves the day is doing the portal access and portal utilization for them, which is very counterintuitive. But that's kind of really what Gorilla's business has been based upon, largely because of that very problem, because the partners don't access. And so therefore, if you as a vendor want your partners to use your material, use your co-marketing material, effectively communicate that to their potential end users, et cetera, then the concierge function is absolutely vital. And we see that, you just can't get around it. It is vital. All you can do as a vendor is to segment and say, well, this is how it's going to work. These guys are the concierge support system for the top layer partners will be done by my top execs. The middle part will outsource it because we can't afford to do it all internally. And then comes a very interesting discussion point that Gilles, I'm sure, can elaborate, is how to orchestrate that through distribution for the rest of the partners. But don't never set off with the idea. Have everything on the portal because it needs to be there. It needs to be
people will use it.
That need it, because occasionally they do need it, and they'll be well furious if you don't have a portal, and if your portal doesn't have what it should have, where it should have it, in an easy to access manner. They'll be well furious. But that's the only time the partners will really need to use your system. For all the times that you'd like them to use your system, they won't use it. So you got to take it to them.
Yeah, and I would say that assume, I mean, know that exactly as Jesse mentioned and other people, you know, a small fraction or even a decent fraction, 50% is a decent fraction of all the salespeople at your different partners and all that are going to use your portal or your PRM. It's you know the reality, right? But act like 100% of them are going to use it, because the few that will, there's potentially some level of correlation between the fact they're using it and the fact that they're probably one of your more engaged partner. So you don't want to upset the more engaged partners, right? You definitely don't want to do that. So as Carlo was saying, make sure everything is at the ready and all that, and make sure you talk about it with them and to do improvements and those type of things and all that. Well, if you're a vendor of, you know, XYZ, you don't have control over the PRM you've been buying. For us, it's a little different because we do have control. We write the code, but it's still things that as a vendor you can report to your PRM partner or your PRM vendor supplier and say, hey, you know, a good amount of my partners are asking for X, Y, and Z and all that. And so anyway, we're diverging a little bit here in the realm of PRM, but it's still important. Funnily enough, it's still important to have the assets, you know, available as PDFs or Word docs or whatever you want, you know, PowerPoint presentation they can customize, that kind of stuff that they can still access offline. Let's call it offline. But even when they're online, they'll still access it offline because it's easier. Some of them, right? Anything else about the welcoming kit? Anything I missed from the audience that maybe things that I've been missing, but I'm looking. Give me one sec. But
yeah, I think we've covered everything on the welcoming kit. So, you know, I know we talked about 4 steps, right? So moving on to, you know, the third kind of step.
The first was your checklist, internal and external. Second was the welcome email or the welcome message.
Welcome kit.
Yeah, and the welcome kit was third, and fourth is the kickoff call.
All right.
So we'll move there, and first I want to address Michael, who said yes. So I recommend it through Google Drive or any other way. I mean, if you can, you know, send a zip file to your, you know, it's usually going to be a lot of documentation and all that, so it might have to be more because of restrictions on the size of attachments with emails and that kind of stuff. But I find it a very good way to do it. It doesn't have to be that. But yes, absolutely. All of this should be on the PRM portal or on the PRM solution that you have, if you have one, because a lot of vendors don't acquire one, especially startups and all that. It's good old-fashioned Excel spreadsheets, and they're not going to acquire a PRM portal because they all think it's an obnoxious amount of money to do that. But again, that's because they haven't checked with us. But it's and you need an admin, right? Also, you need a person that's going to have to admin this and upload the documents and make sure the documents are, you know, still valid. So do all the revisioning and versioning and all that kind of stuff and all that. It's for some people it can be daunting of a task. And you know, it depends. So Jesse, you have a question about including a physical product, right? So I default to all the discussion we have on services and software mostly. So that's why I'm not including like any physical stuff necessarily, but you make a very good point that companies that are actually selling hardware and stuff of that nature should do that. I completely agree with you. So if you're selling servers or an appliance of any sort, I would definitely have a demo program or a try and buy program or something like this. I would, depending on the size of your on your channel and the cost of your demo unit or try and buy unit or whatever the case might be, I would not necessarily offer this to everybody. Maybe you can, you know, you can put this into tiers and define that some partners already have access to a higher tier and therefore they have access to a demo unit or that kind of stuff. It all depends on finances after that, because, you know, demoing software to everybody costs nothing. Demoing hardware costs something. So depending on your capability, should you factor this into your welcoming kit? Absolutely. I would absolutely do that. When I was at Sun and Sun Microsystem, and we launched the latest and brightest ZOS storage for Sun, we launched 500 of those demo units was the partners. And new partners coming into the fray and all that were having access to it right out of the gate. So it's a very good point you're making. Thank you. Moving on to the kickoff call. Well, so in your email, you're going to talk about the checklist of things that have to be done, and you're going to schedule cadence calls and all that kind of stuff, or suggest the scheduling of cadence calls. You're going to refine all this during the kickoff call, right? So you're going to have a kickoff call, and ideally, you would want to have as many people as possible from the pre-sales, marketing, sales, and channel management organization at that kickoff call, right? It's not always possible. Sometimes you're going to have multiple kickoff calls because of scheduling conflicts and this type of thing, and or sometimes because of you have a lot to cover with marketing, you have a lot to cover in sales, you have a lot to cover in the technical aspect of things, and therefore sometimes it doesn't make any sense to have a kickoff call where you're going to cover all of this enough in depth to make it relevant for the 3 different groups I just mentioned in 1 hour. Any call that goes past 1 hour, you're going to lose the sales guys anyway. It's going to start getting diluted and that kind of stuff. So kickoff call is just a concept. How you actually deliver that kickoff call might be in multiple sessions and all that, and that's fine, right? But what you want to do at this point is just reframe the relationship. If there's new people here that weren't part of the initial discussions, so reframe the relationship, meaning how you came to become partners and what is the win-win situation for you guys, what are the benefits for them as a partner, while restating what are the benefit for you as a vendor. But also, as Carlo mentioned to me not too long ago, reframe the expectations, right? As well, and explain, what we're going to do for you guys and what you guys have stated you expect from us. And you will have some of that information coming from the intake form if you haven't done the job in depth enough before. That's why you want an intake form. But you're going to be able to reposition all this and make sure the rules of engagement are clear and the expectations are clear for everybody, right? Of course, if you have new faces during those kickoff calls, you're going to have a session of question and answers, open for people to ask whatever they want, right? You're going to do possibly when you have a kickoff call, and that will depend on the strategic aspect of your the size of the meeting and the strategic aspect of your relationship. But usually when I recruit or when I used to recruit larger partner that for me were like ideal partners, very large, covering all geos, all that kind of stuff and all that, I would try to have as many people from them as possible. But I would also present every single actor that's going to be instrumental. So the people you're going to put on your contact list, who do I call for marketing? You call this person. Who do I call for pre-sales questions? You call that guy, and so on and so forth. I would have all those people during the kickoff call so they can introduce themselves and they can present themselves. People can put a face on the name or a name on the face, and so on and so forth, right? Do all those kind of things, right? And you're going to present how you're going to operate from the operational aspect of things. So you're going to tell them that now they have access to a package that tells them exactly how to get a quote, how to get a quote revision, how to get special pricing, how to place a PO, how to negotiate this, negotiate that, those type of thing. But you're going to want to do this for all departments, right? So I just talked about sales. Now, maybe you're going to have pre-sales people that are going to say, hey, are we going to have like Delta trainings when you guys have an upgrade or that kind of stuff? You're going to talk about that. Or you're going to have the marketing team saying, how do we use MDF? What are you guys' requirement for proof of performance? And so on and so forth. All those type of things you're going to want to address. That's why I was saying sometimes you may want to have different kickoff calls with different departments. But ideally, you're going to bring your people in to make sure everybody sees that there's a team in front of them, not just the channel manager that scored one new partner for the company, and that you guys are ready and prepared and organized to address their needs on a daily basis. That's the thing. And then, of course, you're going to talk and possibly schedule during that time the trainings, and those are important. And you may have, traditionally, I see 3 types of trainings that you need to have in a company. There's obviously the sales training, obviously the pre-sales training, and ideally these 2 are different trainings because you're not going to have the same set of questions and the same set of interaction during those things and not present the very same thing. Sometimes you may want to have salespeople that are going to be in the technical training, and sometimes you may want to have technical training people that wants to be in the sales training, because these 2 functions are sometimes blending a lot. And then, of course, there's the third one, and you'll define this during the kickoff call. Usually, how do they prefer to organize this and have this set up, right? And there's the last training that you're going to have, which is usually a training on your PRM, right? On your portal, whatever it is that you use, and whoever is going to be your champion for that, or the administrator of this, is absolutely mandatory to be on this training. But also some of the sales folks and all that, if you want to have people using them, using your portal, you may want to have them in the training as well, right? And just like the product demo trainings and videos I talked in the welcoming kit or in the package for the new partner, you want to have as much as possible of those self-paced training videos for everything in what's available for your partner. Why? Because you're not going to reorganize something new every time they hire a new salesperson or a new marketing person or a new pre-sales person and all that, but you want to make it available to them that they can self-pace, right? And I was in a fairly small company not too long ago, and that was something I was screaming to have, because the only other option was to do ad hoc trainings for everybody, or to organize a session, like say every month on the 3rd Thursday of every month. We would have 2-hour trainings for everybody that wanted to join at this point. Well, the problem with this is, and it's a good idea as well to have scheduled training that people can jump in whenever they want. That's fine. But people won't ask questions during that time, or they won't ask very in-depth questions with factual cases, because they will know some of their competitors are also in the training and that kind of stuff. And they don't necessarily want you to understand that they're struggling with X, Y, and Z or that kind of stuff, right? So, or if you have good ideas to position your solution, they may not want to share those good ideas with you during the session, because immediately all the other tech people and salespeople are going to jump on this and do the same thing, right? And they're going to oh, that's a great idea, we should do that as well, right? They don't want to pass that information to them. So self-paced training videos, Carlo, very good point. You want to have that as much as possible if you want to scale. That's it. And so I've covered the trainings, and now if your program involves certifications and those type of thing, you may want to also talk about this during the kickoff call, right? And make all this fun for them. Gamify it, right? If you have swag and that kind of stuff, you can say, if we can complete the trainings and the initial trainings and the certifications, and you guys have filled all the boxes you need to fill to make sure this is a case closed, and now we can operate and start sharing books, and I can introduce you to my sales team and this and that, and we can start hunting together. Makes you guys complete everything within a month, I'll send everybody t-shirts, sweatshirts, whatever, and your channel manager will have a bonus thingy because he's the one that is herding the cats. Do something like this. Gamify the stuff, make it fun for them, because again, don't stay in this tunnel vision. You're the one asking them that. For you, it doesn't look much. For them, there's 20 other vendors that are asking the same thing. So it's painful for them. So just differentiate yourself by making it lighter, easier, more fun, and rewarding if at all possible.
Yep. All right.
I'm done.
We got about...
If I may add,
yeah.
just a concluding remark around that is, really fill the onboarding with, I would say, with the promise of the next stages of collaboration and support, so that they don't feel that once they've onboarded, you shake their hand and you say, okay, let's let's talk again at the QBR. No, there has to be a partnership is about doing things together. And again, sometimes I don't see that, right? So I really will encourage everybody to say, okay, let's set those dates for the four-legged telemarketing day together to go and target end users. Let's set a date for some other marketing activities for us to start launching and refining the marketing plan. Let's work out the makings really of I mean, that should be already done at the end of the recruitment stage, the business plan. But that's something that you can that should not be a document that sits in a drawer, as they say. I mean, this is a cliche, but it's about working through it on a weekly basis with someone. And the more you partner with them, the more they partner back with you, is my experience. So just thought I'd say that.
So I that's all the points you just made, Carl, are absolutely critical, and at least in my opinion, this is what we're going to be covering in the next session, right? And it's, if you only show up, as Carl was saying, at the end of the quarter and say, hey, what do you have for me? That's not going to go very far, and that's not going to go very well. This is a fire you need to maintain very regularly, which is the difficult part of the channel management art, I would say. And very quickly, you're going to have to identify your priorities within your partner ecosystem, and within each partner, your priorities, right? Not every salesperson is going to be one of your champion. You got to quickly identify the one where you're going to spend the time on and with. Same with the pre-sale, same with the marketing folks, and so on and so forth. But yes, that's only the beginning. That's only the starting point. And after that, you have a long race to keep running with them and make sure they keep on being engaged and that kind of stuff. So communication is key, of course, just like for everybody. We're human beings. Relevant communication is better. And then we'll talk about incentives and how to motivate these people or to make their life easier, right? But keep thinking, right? Carlos started to introduce elements such as business planning and all that kind of stuff and all that. I have a very different position on the business planning and that kind of stuff, always, because I've been at distributors, I've been at vendors, I've been at partners, right? At resellers, MSPs, MSSPs, that kind of stuff. And so when I start hearing, when I put my shoes or I put myself in the shoes of a partner, and I see a new vendor coming in and say, no, business planning and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, okay, this one has the tunnel vision, right? He only sees me and himself on my line card. He doesn't see the 50 other vendors that I have to do business plans for. If my sales guys start to go into business planning mode, they stop selling, right? So we'll have ideas for you to talk about that kind of stuff, right? And the team of channel managers that I've had in the past 10, 15 years, they were never asking for doing business planning with sales reps and that kind of stuff. They were doing it. They were doing it for them. Just to give you an idea as to where I'm going to go with that. They were doing it for them. They could do it very well because they were engaged enough in discussions at the bar or at customers, at prospects, and all that kind of stuff, that they knew exactly what was coming from the partner. So if you have a good knowledge of your partner, you don't need them to get into this. Just so you know, I'm just.
I look forward to kicking that around together with you at the next.
They like the management of partners, especially smaller partners and that kind of stuff. But they hate these two words, these two words, business planning or business plan. They just despise this with passion. Right, but
we'll wrestle that next time.
Yeah, we can wrestle it next time. It's fun, but there's ways to still produce them without and making the life of the partner easier. There are ways to do that. But anyway, that's I think that's all I have. Unless you have other questions, Aaron, at this point, right?
No, I think
the one thing to take out of this is this, right? it seems to be so obvious. Everything we talked about seems to be so obvious, right? So for me, it's 25 years of observation, or what happens from the moment they sign a contract to the moment they don't produce. What has happened here that causes them to not produce? And even though onboarding is not the 100% reason why they don't produce, it's a good chunk, right? It's just a good chunk. A lot of people don't do it well, and a lot of people don't do it at all, not in an organized way. They just wait for the partner to say, hey, how do I do this? Oh, let's have a call so I can explain to you why we're doing this way and how we do it, right? And then another call, and then another call, and then an email, and then this and that. It's completely discombobulated. Nothing is centralized, so total waste of time, and shows that you're not channel ready.
Yeah. No, it's a great thought to end on. I really appreciate everybody joining us today. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Very interesting topic and a great discussion. So this recording will be available on our website at gorillaict.com under our events tab, as well as on our YouTube channel. So be sure to connect with us. Connect and follow us on LinkedIn as well, so you can get updated as to when our next event is going to be. And join us in September for the webinar on Partner Enablement Part 1, Motivating Your New Partners. So thanks, everyone.